Bettelheim is recognized throughout the world as one of the greatest living child psychologists. His achievement rests on rescuing some of the most difficult children it is possible to imagine. In this film, Bettelheim and some of his former patients describe how their damaged personalities were repaired at the University of Chicago's Orthogenics School. Among Bettelheim's patients is a well-known financier responsible for one of the biggest mergers in the history of Wall Street between American Express and Shearson's. Sandy Lewis, as a boy of 10, was just one of a group of many emotionally disturbed children who today owe their recovery to Bettelheim.
By the time I reached the Orthogenics School in 1950, I had reached a stage where I had fantasies about murdering women, dismembering them. I was very explicit in discussion of which particular parts of their anatomy I would remove. And this was upsetting for all parties.
I don't think I would be sitting here today, literally. I think I was desperately unhappy, and somehow, if I hadn't tried to commit suicide again, I would have just been locked up somewhere. I was really unhappy. I was a terribly unhappy person. The school saved my life.
I was an unpleasant delinquent. I had exhausted the resources of my own family and my own community. And this was a court of last resort.
His work, though it only involves one small school in one city in the nation, is really an example for all, because he's shown that you can take the most hopeless cases and bring them around.
Bruno Bettelheim, now 83, lives in retirement in California. He is one of the last surviving members of the psychoanalytic movement to be trained in Vienna during the time of Sigmund Freud. Before World War II, he worked successfully with deeply disturbed children. In 1938, he was imprisoned in the Nazi concentration camps and saw the personalities of otherwise normal prisoners disintegrate under extreme stress into psychotic and schizophrenic behavior. And for a year, Bettelheim himself struggled to preserve his own sanity.
Only many years later, when I had a great deal of experience with psychotic children, it occurred to me how parallel many of the attitudes and the behavior of these children were to those I observed in prisons in the concentration camps. Of course, the great difference was that the prisoners in the concentration camps actually lived in what I call an extreme situation of severe persecution, torture, mistreatment, extreme deprivation. The psychotic children only imagined that these were the conditions of their lives.
Following his release, Bruno Bettelheim emigrated to America and came here to the University of Chicago. He had been one of a small group of prisoners whom the SS released without explanation. In 1944, he was appointed director of this school for disturbed children.
When I took over the Orthogenics School, the decision was that you should serve only cases which, according to present knowledge, are incurable, who cannot be helped, where various psychiatric treatments have been tried and failed to produce any results. So we had the most difficult children known, anyway from homicidal, suicidal, psychotic, severely delinquent. We worked with fire setters. We worked quite a bit with children suffering from anorexia of such a degree that their life was in danger, in imminent danger. And in most cases, at least 2 or 3 efforts at psychiatric treatment in other institutions or clinics had been attempted and failed.
The school gave Bettelheim an opportunity to develop his ideas. He was to work here for the next 30 years. Among the children he treated was Bert Kohler. Delinquent and delusional, he was to spend 6 years at the school. Today, he is a professor at the University of Chicago.
the Orthogenics School is in some sense a positive version of the concentration camp. Let me try and explain that kind of controversial statement. That Bettelheim said, what is there about the concentration camp that leads to the kind of bizarre, unusual behavior that he saw among its inmates? And then if environments have that capacity to elicit, to create behavior in people, what can I do to create a positive version, to create an environment that will work to facilitate development? And orthogenic means literally straight growth, orthogenesis, correction of origins. So what Bettelheim did was to create a milieu, an environment, in which all aspects of the environment, from the kinds of furniture in the dormitory, each dormitory had its own beds and its own dressers, all aspects of the school, including the menu, which was always varied, work together to create a sense of caring for an individual child, in which the child felt safe and well cared for.
To reduce the deep anxiety behind the children's disturbance, Bettelheim wanted to create a completely different environment from conventional institutions.
One of the changes I made when I took over the school was to change all the locks and do away with all the keys. Because when I took over, every door had a lock, and the children could be locked in, which I thought was an abomination. So I took all the locks of all the doors inside the institution, and there were locks only against the outside. That is, the doors, the entrance doors could be locked against the outside, but not against the inside. So any child who wanted to run away could run away, which in short order did away with most running away. Now there were always some children at the beginning had